I do think that we're all so unique in our own way. And I think when we're able to express that and not just conform to what is happening around us and what other people are doing, I think it's the most beautiful thing. And I really do think that it's in those moments where we feel the most connected, that we are getting a glimpse into who we truly are. Hey friends, I'm Tiff, and you're listening to That's Real, a podcast about creating the lives we want, not just the ones we were told to live. I'll be sharing everything I'm learning to live my life on my terms and hopes to inspire you to do the same. Let's redefine what's possible together. Hey friends, and welcome back to That's Real. I'm your host, Tiff. And, it's nice being in the beginning stages of creating. Again, I guess you could say, I still feel like this podcast is new-ish for me and I'm still kind of testing and learning. But I will say the more I create, the more the path is made clear. And, I don't know if you guys have experienced this too, where, you're starting a new project, you're creating, you think it's going one way, but then you realize maybe it's supposed to pivot a bit. Like, for example, I do think originally I thought this podcast was about creating the life you want, which it is still in some way, but the more I've started to think about it, it's like I'm realizing that a lot of it is just about us becoming our most authentic selves and us really truly embracing the truest versions of ourselves. Because I don't know if you guys are feeling this, but I personally feel like in this season of our lives, we're truly being called to step into who we really are. And I do think that this is easier said than done. And especially because I do think a lot of us have been conditioned to operate in a certain way without us even realizing it. And, I've been really, really working to unlearn a lot of things so that I can fully embrace just who I am. Because I do really think the more we can show up as our true self, the more we attract opportunities that really align with us, that are really aligned for us, the more we attract, the right relationships for us. And also, I think the more we move in this direction, whatever is not really serving us, whatever is not aligned for us, starts to trickle away. And I almost feel like it's like we're in this process of inventing ourselves. And I actually got this inventing ourselves language from the Steven Spielberg documentary. So I've been watching it. It's actually really good. And in the documentary, there's this part where Tom Hanks is basically speaking on Steven Spielberg and just the amazing work that he's done. And he says, Steven was in the process of inventing himself. I don't think he knew where the road was going to take him. And I loved that so, so much because, I feel like this word authenticity has become like a buzzword now where over the past few years, it's like, be authentic, like show up as yourself, blah, 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 which is all great and fun, fine. But do people actually know how to do that? And that's kind of what I wanted to get into in today's episode, and kind of where I feel like my podcast is headed. Because the more I thought about that's real, right? And what that really means, you kind of realized that just sharing and documenting anything that makes you say that's real, which is basically anything that you feel truly resonates with you, that really speaks to your soul, that lights you up in some way, even if you're not sure why. I feel like that's a huge piece of us becoming our authentic selves, is paying attention to those things that really feel right for us, even if we might not know why. And I realized, over the course of my life, there have been so many moments where I've kind of been like, ooh, that really hit home for me, or ooh, that really, really resonated with me. And I really do think that it's in those moments where we feel the most connected, those moments where we feel the most alive, that we are kind of getting a glimpse into who we truly are. Actually, there's this quote that I saw, because you guys know I'm always finding a good quote. Someone posted it on Instagram stories, and the guy who it's from, so his name is Yusuf Chroma. It says he's a writer and a poet. So he wrote, "The fastest way to attract what's truly meant for you is to express yourself with such honesty that everything misaligned falls away on its own. The right people, opportunities, and blessings will recognize you more clearly when you stop hiding." It says, and in your light. I think he might have meant to say, and step into your light, when you stop hiding and step into your light. So, friends, I really do think it's about that time that we get back to the root of who we are, our true essence, our foundation. And to me, it's like, what is more honest and true than these moments that really light us up and spark interest or encourage us to dive deeper, make us stop, pause, really listen? What is more true to us than these moments? I feel like they're so unique to us and is what truly sets us apart. But over and above that, I think it's a big part of why we're here. And I've been thinking about this too. I sometimes think of all of us as this huge, massive orchestra, right? And I feel like we all have a different instrument that we're playing. Sometimes I feel like we all have different music, like different songs that we're playing. But some way, somehow, by each of us playing what we're meant to play, we come together and produce the most beautiful music. By each of us staying true to, what it is that we're supposed to be playing, whatever music that is. And it's not to say that, there's only one set thing that we should be doing, because I do think a lot of us have multiple talents, multiple gifts. There's this whole notion of the portfolio career happening right now where you do more than one thing. It's like you have your 9 to 5, then you have something creative that you're doing on the side, then maybe you're doing something else. So I don't think it's that we can only just do one thing. I think the whole point is to do the thing that feels true for you, because I do think that that's how you make the greatest impact, and that's how you do your part and play your song in this orchestra. So I figured we could try this out together, just really tapping into our truth through a little prompt that I have for us all. So, for you, what is a recent moment that made you say that's real? So, a moment that just really resonated with you, that really felt so good, that just sparked joy in some way or sparked curiosity. What was a recent moment like that for you? It could be a story you heard, a quote that really resonated, something you overheard. Maybe you came across a community, whatever it is. What was your most recent that's real moment? Think I might try to incorporate this more in future episodes too. So, whatever your that's real moment is, drop it in the comments. Would love to hear from you. Would love to see what's been resonating with you. I will say for me, a recent that's real moment was about a month and a half ago. I was with two really good friends, family friends. They were visiting LA and really wanted to go to the LACMA, which is the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. And I had gone a few times before, but I had never gone into the actual museum to like see any of the exhibits. And it's funny because I just now, when preparing for this episode, saw what the actual description of the exhibit was, and it said, "Through an analysis of Black artists' aesthetic choices, imagining Black diasporas reveals their insights about existence," which y'all know is my jam. Oof, just all of this was just so aligned. So we're walking into the museum, and my friend Alexia, who I was with, was telling me how when she goes into museums, she doesn't really try to look at every single thing and look at every single piece of art, but she kind of just sees, what she's naturally drawn to, what she gravitates towards. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try that too. So we walk into the exhibit, and I mean, so many beautiful paintings, so many beautiful pieces and works of art. I mean, it was a great exhibit. I'm honestly not sure if it's still up. I think it only went through, I think it ended end of July. But yeah, there was a lot on display that I was like, wow, this is really cool. But one piece in particular really caught my eye, and it was this beautiful painting that looked like just a burst of colors. There were different shapes, there were different lines, there were different figures, but just colors, colors, colors. And I kind of think I was drawn to this painting for two reasons. One, I think it was because, for some reason, it kind of felt like the inside of my brain, like my mind, like all of these different thoughts and ideas and just everything swirling around in there, which was kind of like the colors on the painting. But in a way, I've always felt like, yes, it seems like a lot, but I know they're working together for the greater good of me. Just like all of these colors and whatnot were working together for the greater good of the painting. And then I think another reason why it really resonated with me was because it felt so different from all of the other paintings in the room to me. And I've noticed throughout my life, I've always gravitated towards things that feel a little bit different, that just stand out on their own in some way, that kind of feel unique. And in some ways, I think it's because, one, I do think that we're all so unique in our own way. And I think when we're able to express that and not just conform to what is happening around us and what other people are doing, I think it's the most beautiful thing. And I also think it's because I really resonate with feeling different and standing out because growing up from age 8 to 18, I was typically the only Black girl in the classroom. It was just me, and I always felt like I stood out like a sore thumb. And, at the time, it was really uncomfortable. But now looking back on it, I'm honestly so grateful for that experience because I think it just allowed me to feel comfortable in environments where I was different, where I am different, and where I'm not like everyone else in the room. Like, I even remember when I made that big move to Paris, I know a lot of people at the time were kind of like, how was it adapting to being in a completely different culture, a new language, different customs? And I'm not gonna say it was a walk in the park because it wasn't, but, I don't think it bothered me as much being the only American in the room, being at times the only Black person in the room, which I think a lot of us can relate to, especially a lot of us that have been in corporate settings, right? I think just kind of having to fully embrace being different is something that I learned at a very young age. And at the same time, I think I've always felt a little bit more seen in things that are just different and not like the others. So, anyways, I think that that's why I initially was just drawn to this piece of art. And with that said, guys, for your that's real moments, like even if you don't know why you're drawn to them, that's totally fine because I think sometimes it's just a soul thing and it just resonates with you. But I kind of have a feeling that that's why I was drawn to this painting. So I walk up closer to the painting and read the description. And, first it shows the artist's name, which have to shout him out. His name is Samuel de Saboya. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. He's a Brazilian media artist. But then the title of the piece is what I was shook by. So the title of the piece is Self Generated Magic, Organic Freedom. And then the write up of it says, three figures watch as embodied emotions emerge from the leftmost figure's pregnant belly, framed in black. Colorful faces, joy in yellow, anxiety and worry in blue, and expectation and possibility in brown fill the middle section of the composition, which already I was like, okay, I'm feeling seen because for me, whenever I'm approaching creating something new or just stepping into a new chapter of my life, sure, there's like joy and possibility, but then there's also worry and expectation and all of the things. So I'm like, oof, I am feeling so seen by the emotions that this painting represents. And then it goes on to say, according to Samuel de Saboya, the smaller figures represent the creative potential found within one's psyche, which I have definitely been on a creative journey. And if you watch my last episode, I talk a lot about how I really do think the creative process is the key to, creating the lives that we want. So I was like, okay, you're speaking to me. And then it says, self generated magic, he says, comes from having the knowledge of what's possible and doing something about it. Freedom from a lack of preconceptions. To me, self generated magic is the magic that comes with us expressing ourselves authentically. with us tapping into our true nature. I think there's a certain frequency that comes with that, but I do think we're only able to operate from that place when we have freedom from a lack of preconceptions, which is kind of what I was talking about in the beginning of how, I feel like we've all been conditioned to operate a certain way. And I do think a lot of us, myself included, hesitate to do certain things because of these assumptions, these limits, these narratives that we've made up that kind of cause us to talk ourselves out of just doing the thing that could actually unlock our greatest potential, that actually could be in line with our truth. This could look like I'm not qualified, I'm not talented enough. I'm not sure what people are going to think about it. Oh, I don't like this work. It's not great. I mean, for me, it shows up as perfectionism a lot. Like I feel like it's me tripping myself up. Sometimes it's less about the outside and more about I know how good this could look and I want to make sure that if I'm putting it out, it's the best of what I can do. But I'm learning to let go of that a little bit. Something that my boss in France actually used to say is done is better than perfect. So I'm kind of trying to operate from that place now because I do think that the more limits we place on ourselves, whether it be to, again, like work on a project or again, even if we are recreating our lives, right? If we put limits on what we can do, what we can be, where we can go, I think that's pulling us further and further away from our true essence. So, friends, let's remove the preconceptions and let's just start doing the things that we want to do because we genuinely feel called to do them. We genuinely want to do them. We like to do them. Let's just try, and especially when it comes to like creative endeavors and side projects, like I feel like that's where we get to play. That's where we get to have fun. That's where we just get to be and just pour all of who we truly are into what we're doing. Because I do think that we are rewarded beyond belief when we can operate in that way and stay the course. And actually, going back to the Steven Spielberg documentary that I was telling you that I was watching, it's on HBO Max. I think it's HBO Max if any of you guys want to watch it. But he talks about how when he was a kid, he just started playing around with the camera and had so much fun doing it. And through that, he met these other guys that also really like to do it and they became friends and started making films and sharing the films with each other. And I don't think any of them thought that they would become as big as they ended up becoming, but we obviously all know what happened with Steven Spielberg. And actually, one of his friends, that was in his little group, is the creator of Star Wars. And, in the documentary, it said, none of them were thinking that they would one day be running Hollywood, right? But through them just following what felt true for them, it ended up just unlocking a life beyond their wildest dreams. And friends, I am by no means just telling you to quit your job and pursue some passion with no plan. And I mean, unless you can happily do that and sustain yourself, go for it. But the point of all of this is pay attention to those moments that make you say that's real, those moments that really feel so true to you. Because I do think that they will lead us to a path that feels right for us, that feels aligned, that just opens a door to a world beyond our wildest dreams. And that's what I'm after. And I think you might be too. So, something else that I just have to share, it's from this book I'm reading called The Art of You by James McCrae. So, he says, "We are each born on a mission to manifest the most authentic expression of ourselves. But millions of gears in the socioeconomic machine are engineered to make us disempowered and forget who we truly are. Our magic is real, but we've been taught all the wrong tricks." And so, what are those tricks? Those tricks are it's not realistic. What we want to do is only for the chosen few. Or we have to conform to what other people want us to do to get anywhere. I feel like these are also all the preconceptions that I'm sure our friend Samuel was talking about. So, again, the ultimate goal is to remove the preconceptions and come back to ourselves. Because I really do think that that's where our true magic lives, our true essence. who we really are and what we're here to do. So, the question I'm going to leave you with to think about until we meet again is, where have you been placing limits on yourself? And it's something that I'm going to think about more too. So, friends, that's all I have for you for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if any of what I shared with you made you say that's real, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube. And if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I would love, love, love it if you could leave me a 5-star rating and review. It really helps a lot. Thank you so much again, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.